with me for about 15 minutes and told me all about why Jesus went to the cross. And then they said, Richard, do you really believe that Jesus is the Son of God? And I said, well, he has to be. And I said, and not only that, I said, with the dream, when I had my dream and I seen the hand of God, I said, it's got to be real. Jesus has got to be real. And they said, well, so you're pretty settled that Jesus is the Son of God. And he did go, and you agreed he went to the cross for your sins. And I said, yes, I do. And they said, well, stand up, and we all stood up, and we all held hands, you see, and they led me through this simple little easy prayer. And I asked Jesus to come and live inside of my heart and change me. That was the most amazing words she used, was to change me and make me the person that he wants me to be. And when I did that, we all closed our eyes and we all got our hands held like this, you see, and anyway, when I opened, I had them shut like this, and when I said amen like this, and they said, Richard, how do you feel? And I'm standing there like this, and I didn't really realise that they had let go of my hands. And they said, how do you feel? And I said, well, it's really, really hard to explain. They said, well, you must be able to explain it some way. How do you feel? I said, well, it's like this. It's like I had 1,000 hands on my head pushing me down like this. I said, and all of a sudden, they're gone. And they just started clapping. They said, yeah, like this, and I opened my eyes and they're standing over here. And I just knew that something had really happened to me, because I had all this weight lifted off of me. And I was so excited. I thought, this is fantastic. This is better than any drug I ever had in my whole life. And I took a lot of drugs. So it was really amazing to me, and I thought, wow. And I went back and I said to Sharon, I'd done it. I've asked Jesus to come and live in my heart. And she says, oh, well, that's good. I just couldn't get over that, she wasn't really excited about me doing what I did, but I was so excited because I knew that God had his hand on my daughter. So I knew that there was something going on. This is how God confirms things. This is how I made my great escape. Because God knew that he had to show both of us. He had to convince both of us that he was with us, right? And this whole thing had to happen the way it did, so my wife would believe too, that I wasn't trying to pull another con job. Can you imagine that? I can't do it now. I couldn't imagine it really now, to try to trick someone into believing that you've just got Jesus, because the most amazing thing happened. The day before our operation, they sent us up into this called recovery room, right? And you go up into this recovery room and there's all these little babies, you wouldn't believe it, eh? And there's wires and things coming off of them, and they've got big stitch marks down here, and there's alarms going off, and they're all puffed up, and they look it's scary, eh? And Sharon started to cry, she's saying, because she's thinking, my little baby's got to go through this. And I'm thinking the same thing. I'm thinking, you don't expect to see this kind of thing. So they take you up there to prepare you to see this. This is what you're going to see when your daughter comes out. And Sharon was crying away there, and the nurse said, I think you better leave, hey? So we walk out of that room and go back down the stairs, and we head back into the children's ward, and I open up the door and Sharon walks in, and the sister sees us, you see, and she's standing over there at a little desk, and she says, look, have a go at you two. You look so terrible, what's wrong? She says, I know where you've been up that recovery room. Come over here, I want to tell you something. So we said, all right. So we went over there, and she said, you know what, Mr. and Mrs. Gibson, there is 5 top heart surgeons in the world. And she started to name them. And as she's naming them off, she gets to the 5th one, right? And she said, and he's the best in the world. You know what? He just flew in last night from tutoring in America. He was over there teaching other doctors how to do special heart operations, and he flew in last night, guess what for? And I said, oh, what for? She said, to work on your daughter. And I went, really? She said, yeah. And I thought, wow, like this. And she said, but come a bit closer, because you're not allowed to go telling everyone this stuff, because you're not allowed to talk about surgeons. And I said, oh, all right. So we leaned up a bit closer to the counter, and she said, he's a special doctor. I said, what do you mean? She said, they get him in the operating theatre, you see, and she says, and they take their little heart out, and I went, yeah. She says, and they put him down and they start to patch him, and I went, yeah, and I'm elbowing Sharon, because the first thing I started to see when she was telling me about the operation is my dream, right? And she says, and they patch it all up, and I went, yeah, and I'm elbowing Sharon. I said, Hey, my dream. I'm thinking my dream, and she's doing the same thing. I know she's thinking about my dream, because I couldn't shut up about my dream. And she says, and they put it back in, and they sew it back in, and I said, yeah. And she says, and she says, and they get these two little prongs. And I went, yep, I know about those prongs, yeah. And she says, and they prong it to start it, and I said, yeah. And by that time, Sharon's going, stop hitting me. And I said, like this, and she could see I was excited, and she said, and they prong it. And I said, yeah. And she says, and sometimes it doesn't start. And I said, yeah, I know. And she said, well, he's special. And I said, why? And she said, he puts his hand over it and he prays. And you know what? I'm just jumping up and down like this, and Sharon's going, it's your dream. And the poor old sister's going, what? We're jumping up and down. I'm saying, I told you, it's real. And Sharon says, she's saying to Sharon, she said, what's it about? Sharon says, he had a dream, and you just told him the dream again. She said, well, you know what? This must be God or something like that. She said something about God to us. And I said, I believe it like this. Isn't it amazing, eh? This doctor had been called to come from America. He was counted to be the best surgeon that they know, heart surgeon that they know at that time. He flew all the way from America, came over to perform an operation on our daughter, right? And he's a born-again Christian. Isn't God good? Isn't God wonderful? See, the hand of God was upon this mission. This rescue, this great escape that I made, right, was out of the pit of hell, right? Because I was nearly in there. Hey, I was down there, I was sinking down there, but hey, God put his hand out and I grabbed hold of it. You know that the hand of God, is mentioned all the way through the Bible. Through his word, it's the hand of God. The right hand of God is there, what for? Is to bring blessing. Right? I reckon it was his right hand too. When I seen that dream, I reckon it was his right hand, eh? His left hand's for judgment. So we've got to watch out. If he's going to left hook you, you'll be in trouble, eh? But the most amazing things happen in our lives, eh? Like to me, the whole thing happened kaplonk, kaplonk, kaplonk. And it was time, like my sister. Like I could go on for another hour with testimony about the great miracles that happened after that. Because many did. Many things happened after that, like, my mum. Now I'll give you one example. I had not even read the Bible. I've never picked up a Bible, or if I did as a child, I never remember reading a Bible. Tanya goes, has her operation. All the time before that, right, those nights, I just knew she was going to be all right. She had the operation. That's Tanya down there. That's my daughter down there. Here she is, live, kicking and well. She had the hand of God upon her, and she's here to prove it. See, God doesn't lie. But the most amazing thing happened after she had the operation, and the little doctor. You know what? I went over to see him. Right, we both did. And here he comes, right? I couldn't believe it. He was this little man about this tall. He had arms as thick as that. He would have been about 65, maybe 70 years old, this little man, right? And he came out, with his robe thing on that they wear in the surgeon's thing and that, and he walks over to us, and he's so quietly spoken, and he's saying something. I couldn't hear him. I said, hold on. Sharon said, go over and hear what he's saying. I went right up to him and he said, Mr. Gibson, he said, I'd like to give your daughter he said, look, the law says to me that I can only do this. And I said, what do you mean? He said, I give your daughter a 99% success rate. And I said, why? And he goes, because I want to give her 100, but the law won't allow me. And I went, oh, well, I gave him a big hug. And he was like looking at me, and I'm giving him a big hug. We'll just say, because actually the operation took nearly 2 hours longer than normal. How about that, eh? And then the next evening, I'm going through my wife's purse, not to steal money, not to go get some booze down the road or a bet on the TAB. I was looking for some change to ring Sydney, right, to talk to my step.